The story of the man who was lame at the Bethzatha gate. Say that 5 times fast. The last time I referenced this reading, I was as old as that man had been lame. My entire lifespan, this man had been sitting at this gate, waiting to be healed. That's hard to imagine. What's interesting also is that the lectionary decided to not include one of the verses in this passage because it wasn't in every authoritative original text. Now, for $5, if you can tell me what was going on that was missing from this gospel, I will make sure to get you that $5 at some point. Can anyone tell me? I knew it wasn't a Baptist crowd. The story was an angel would come down and stir the waters of the pool, and when the waters were stirred, the first person who stepped in would be healed. So, excellent for the lucky person that gets there the quickest. But I would imagine it's a little hard to go down and get healed if you can't walk. Keep in mind, ADA compliances were not a thing in those times and places. In fact, they weren't even 100 years ago. So things we often take for granted to help give people access to get to these things were not in place. And I again recall my friend Lauren's sermon on this in her senior sermon at seminary, changing it from the notion of Jesus going up to this man, looking on him with pity, saying, "Do you want to be healed? Okay, let's take care of you." It's the look of, "Do you want to be healed, bro? Do you want to be healed?" And the man goes, "Well, let me tell you all the reasons why it hasn't happened. Let me give you this litany of excuses, legitimate excuses, mind you, but nonetheless, after 38 years, you begin to wonder if there's a part of him that secretly doesn't want to really be healed, because what would he do with his life if he got that healing?" Keep in mind, I've only lived 3 years longer than that man was lame. Sophie, it's twice your age and more. So, imagine that. Do you want to be healed? Are you willing to do what it takes to get there? Now, I imagine a very strong, determined, driven person would have taken steps in those times to build relationships with other people that would help ensure that he got to that pool as soon as he could. What's it like when you've been complaining about something over and over and over and over and over again, that you really, it drives you crazy, it hurts, it bums you out, it keeps you feeling just down in the dumps. And then someone, maybe not in the most helpful tone, goes, "What are you going to do about it? Are you going to change or not?" And you're like, "Excuse me, who do you think you are? This is a terrible thing to me. Why don't you understand it?" Lord knows I have. I've also been the person who's like, "Come on, get with the program, it's time." There are a lot of things at play here, especially when you've built your identity around this thing that you complain about, this thing that keeps you hamstrung or paralyzed. It is not an easy thing to swallow when someone says, "I know it's hard. I know this hurts. I know this is painful. And it's time to decide, are you going to get up, get your healing, and move forward? Or are you going to stay in this place? And if you're going to stay in this place, then you no longer really have the right to complain about it without trying to do something about it." Ouch. I imagine plenty of you have been in both sides of that flip coin. Well, that is the challenge that we face in so many aspects of our lives, especially right now. It was interesting to think about in 2019 We were still getting to know each other. Life was bright and had possibilities. There was no knowledge of any sort of pandemic on the horizon. We were expecting to do all kinds of stuff very quickly. And now we're having to put the puzzle pieces back together. We're getting there. It's going to take probably a year to get some sort of rhythm back in place. It's like when you stop riding your bike for an hour after you've been riding hard, and then suddenly you have to pedal up a 30-inch grade hill, and you have to start from gear 5. Does it feel like that to you sometimes, those of you who ride bikes? I mean, that's certainly the case for me. And so the question is, if we don't get over the hill, we don't get to where we need to go. But it means some little excruciating pushing on the pedals to get us there. And maybe, how about we ratchet the gears down a little bit, even if we have to go back down the hill a little bit to get that going, start going back up in first gear. So it is with getting our rhythms back as individuals and as a parish, but even more so with the world. There was a meme that I saw today that struck me unexpectedly, which often happens. You think you've got all your ideas in a row for your sermon, and then you scroll through Facebook while you're drinking your caffeinated beverage, hoping to wake up, and you get this thing that goes, oh my goodness, that's it. It says, fear has for too long talked too loudly. Greed has for too long talked too loudly. Hate for too long has talked too loudly. It is time for love to stop whispering. Let me say that again. Fear for too long has talked too loudly. Greed has for too long talked too loudly. Hatred for too long has talked too loudly. It is time for love to stop whispering. Also, ouch. Love is a whispering voice most of the time. Love invites us into a safe place to be cared for, to be nurtured, to be supported, to find rest in a wild, crazy world. And it's a wonderful thing when love gives you that sweet, gentle voice, like the voice of your mom when you're a little child and you're lying in her arms. And when you are allowing the voices of fear, hate, greed, and lies to be too loud, that's when the voice of the tough love of your mother, when you have screwed up, says to you, get your act together. You have done this too long. You have pushed too hard. It is time for you to wake up and face the facts. Same person is showing love. But the reality is, love does not yell insults at you. Love does not yell abuses at you. Love shouts when love has to shout. But love is not interested in shutting us down, but telling us, I have healing right here for you. I have transformational, growing love for you. You have to do what it takes to get there, because love is not a one-sided thing, nor a contract. It is hard work, and we cannot do it alone. But another way that love shouts, that is my favorite, is this. Brace yourselves. You are worth it. You are beautiful. You are beloved. No one can take that dignity from you. These voices that are shouting right now, I can shout louder than all of them combined because I am love. I am love. I am the force of the universe. These interlopers, these charlatans think they can take you from me, but when you allow me into your life, nothing can take that from you. I love the shouting voice of love. I love the whispering voice of love that says, now that you've heard me, now that I've helped you silence these voices, are you going to heal yourself? Are you willing to do what it takes to meet me so that you can be healed, so that we can heal this world together, so that these voices cannot overcome us? The beauty of Jesus' words were, come with me to the pool? No. Take up your mat and walk. What does he do? Does he make excuses anymore? Does he give reasons? No, he chooses to trust this man, this stranger, and he gets his healing. Because he chooses to trust that it can be possible, to trust that if he follows suit, this will happen. That's the truth of God. All the injustices, all the hatred, all the greed, all the lies, all the pain, all the talking heads that stir up and foment terrible thinking, terrible, fearful perspectives, and hatred and division in our world are nothing compared to the voice of love. We, as followers of God, are the mouthpiece for that voice of love. It is our responsibility to ensure that we take up our mats and walk. We choose to trust that in spite of decades, of millennia of things, the audacity of love says, I don't care. I recognize it may not work the way I think it's supposed to, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to follow that love and see what that can give me. That's the exciting place that we are in. There are high stakes involved with following love, as you know. Any of you who is truly loved knows how painful it can be. But you also know how amazing, how it's the greatest gift in all of life. All we got to do is trust God, pick up our mats, and walk. Even when you feel like it's impossible. Even when you feel like you have no more faith to give. No more hope to give. Even when these voices shout so loudly, you feel like you are going spiritually deaf. The strange paradox of the shouting, comforting voice of love says to us, they will never be greater than me. Listen to me, and don't be afraid to not only whisper my truth, but shout it from the rooftops and let the world know that love is here. Love is the ultimate. These voices are distractions from the love of God, the love of neighbor, the love of self, through the healing, obedience, and the invitation that God gives us. For too long, the voice of fear has spoken too loudly. For too long, the voice of greed has spoken too loudly. For too long, the voice of hate has spoken too loudly. Too long, the voices of lies have spoken too loudly. It is time for love to stop whispering.